My name is Dan Donahue. I'm state representative for the 16th Worcester District. And so the 16th Worcester compromises the neighborhoods of Grafton Hill, Vernon Hill, Union Hill, Green Island, Quinsig Village, College Hill, and South Worcester, most of those neighborhoods. So really it's the southeast part of the city. There's 160 state representatives across the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. So it's not just being in Boston and voting, but it's also a lot of constituent service work, being a connector for people, for government, to be an advocate for your neighborhoods in government, helping people navigate state government if they have issues. Also, being an advocate in the neighborhood as issues come up, making sure that people's voices are heard, questions are asked, proper reviews going on. So it's kind of like an advocator, connector, kind of a little bit of everything. I think advocating for economic development opportunities in my district is probably the thing I think is sometimes the most important. Making sure that the city of Worcester's changed a lot. The economy's changed a lot from my grandparents' time when we had factories and we had different opportunities. How do we stay competitive in the upcoming economy, and how do we make sure that we have real pathways to the middle class for everyone in our neighborhoods? Born and raised in Quinsigamond Village, lived there my entire life, which was a fantastic experience growing up in the neighborhood. My father's a union carpenter and an organizer for the unions, and my mother's a public school teacher. So, when we grew up in the neighborhood, there was always conversations around political issues around the dinner table, and kind of what was going on around the state, but also right here in the city. So as I kind of grew up, I went to St. John's for high school, and I graduated from Holy Cross. Right, literally, like my street's a dead end. The dead end was Holy Cross. So, and at Holy Cross, I ended up being a political science major by way of a Spanish major first. But I learned a little bit about politics. I never really thought I'd be politically engaged at all, but I did take a course my senior year called Community Organizing and Catholic Thought and Social Action, and it was about how do you build power in groups and in neighborhoods and in people or communities, wherever they are, and how does that power then influence them and allow us to develop leadership. So after I graduated from college, I worked in a community-based organization for the Juvenile Public Defender's Office, and I worked with a lot of at-risk youth that were either involved in the system or trying to make sure kids weren't getting involved in the system, staying out of trouble. And it was really there, having this community organizing background, that I had worked with, and also working kind of with government agencies. That's when I really first kind of became more politically involved than normal. And I ended up working on Deval Patrick's governor's re-election race in 2010 as the city organizer. I ended up working for Lieutenant Governor Tim Murray afterwards as political director. I got to learn more about campaigns, work across the state on different issues. And then I ended up actually coming in and working for the mayor of Worcester after he was re-elected, Joe Petty, his first term. I worked as his director of policy. So when my seat opened up in 2013, having lived in the neighborhood my entire life, having had some political background, I decided that I'm going to run for office and give it a try, and try and be that effective advocate for the neighborhoods where I grew up. My father was probably the biggest influence. Him being very involved in labor issues and in union issues growing up, and seeing him be effective advocate for a lot of the members of his unions that he worked for. But also because at the local level, and he always volunteered at the neighborhood center. If there was ever a meeting about something going on in the neighborhood or a development happening in the neighborhood, he was always there. So seeing him kind of work on all those different roles, he was always involved in that. I kind of picked it up from him, I think. When you're advocating for your district, trying to find that consensus on if you're facing a tough vote at the House, or you're facing, you're looking at a budget vote or something that's going to make a direct impact on the district. That can be difficult because you hear from both sides. People will say, I disagree with this vote, or I want you to vote this way, but it might not turn out that way. So trying to kind of make that balance and find a way that you can be the most effective for your entire district. If someone's calling your office, it's the most important thing to them right then and there. So it might be the smallest thing, might be maybe a lost unemployment check, or it might be a pothole on their street. But making sure that you can deliver and connect people to those resources they needed is always the most gratifying part to me. Legislatively, I ran on, initially, when I worked in the mayor's office, we had worked on this long project, the Route 20 redevelopment project, which is bringing a sewer to the Route 20 part of the city, which doesn't have one to help it, grow jobs, improve the tax base. And I had worked on the mayor's office with it. And we had a task force then, and we couldn't figure out how to fund it correctly, so when I got into the legislature working with State Senator Mike Moore, my state senator, we were actually able to get into a bond bill and get that money funded. So it was in a very short amount of time, in only 2 years, we were able to get the project going. You can get frustrated in government where you're talking about things or you want to do things, and then to actually deliver those tangible results, that one was definitely a nice kind of win for us. Voting is just one part of kind of the civic duty that I think people have. It can be as small as showing up to your monthly crime watches. The city has 52 crime watches. Those are neighborhood meetings where you meet people, and we're not just talking about crime, we're talking about the neighborhood and about the quality of life. I can tell you, if you go to those meetings, there's always usually a city councilor, a state representative, a state senator, the mayor, who people will be able to listen and to hear. And I know I talk to a lot of people, and I get people's opinions at those meetings, and that's extremely important. If you've never worked on a campaign, I always think that everyone should try and volunteer on a campaign. That's where you kind of see where the rubber meets the road, where the getting out and convincing people, or knocking on doors, or seeing how people make policy decisions is a great education in how all right, this is why the representative is doing this. There's also just the showing up aspect of a lot of it. We have all kinds of different rallies or campaign events. Your opinions are meant. If you're going to stand up at those meetings and speak, people are going to listen, and you can hold people accountable. We always want to hear from more people, not less. The more phone calls I'm getting, the more emails I'm getting on legislation or about an issue, the better. You can reach me at my office at 617-722-2006. You can always email me directly at daniel.donahue@mahouse.gov. You can also reach me on my personal cell anytime at 774-239-4552.